The Shark Deck.
Ted Lasso is back, baby. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. All right, the second half of the podcast is going to be all Ted Lasso. I will warn you before we get to it, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody. You see, they're talking about banning TikTok. Seth Meyers said, of course, Joe Biden could end TikTok at any time simply by making an account. Fallon, don't worry. To make it up, Biden promised us he'd give everybody 100 free hours on AOL. Fallon again, yeah, officials think China is using TikTok to spy on us, and China was like, yeah, well, we had a backup idea, but you shot it down. Big headline, Chris Rock has edited his special. It's fine. Relax, everybody. Remember the flub joke? They cleaned it up for the replay. No issue there. Makes sense. By the way, there was a listener on YouTube who got really frosty with me for saying that Chris Rock flubbed a joke. Let me read exactly what Chris Rock himself said. Well, not exactly. I have to bleep out a word here. But Chris Rock himself said, years ago, his wife said I should quit the Oscars. I shouldn't host because her man didn't get nominated for Emancipation, the biggest piece of crap ever. No, not Emancipation. I effed up the joke. Chris Rock said on the special, which is what I told you, YouTube commenter, he messed up. He said it. He flubbed a joke. I didn't make that up. Boy, you're pretty sensitive, Johnny Mac. If you watch the replay now, that portion of the special has been edited out. Again, fine. Why shouldn't the permanent version be better? Having the flub joke didn't add anything. He just flubbed it. It's not like that turned into another 5 minutes of spontaneous material. A source close to the production tells The Hollywood Reporter that Chris Rock was aware of the edit, and Rock and Netflix worked together on the final cut. Awesome. Hey, Theo Vaughn, why do you tell so many stories about your childhood? Theo said, I didn't have a really good childhood. I didn't feel good in my childhood, so it's important to me to make it have some value. It adds a lot of levity to a childhood that didn't have much levity. It's almost like the kid in me is now riding in a safe adult vessel, gets to tell these things and use his imagination and have the freedom to share and feel and not be limited by somebody not wanting to hear him or the circumstances around him that don't allow him to become comfortable to share what he wants. On our podcast, we talk a lot about growing up, childhood trauma, and that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people relate to certain things, and so they'll bring pieces of their childhood that they share with you, so it's kind of interesting sometimes because you don't really know how to receive that. They say it's for you, but really in some ways, it's for them, but that's okay. I hold on to almost everything I've ever gotten. Theo spoke about his upcoming tour and said, I'm just now starting to evolve into a new place where I want to talk more about things I actually think about instead of just telling stories. It's bittersweet kind of, because part of me loves some of the old stuff and I don't want to see it go, but part of me wants to see what else is inside of me. I've always been a late bloomer. I had trouble evolving in my thoughts and feelings, and I think finally it started to happen. This will affect other spaces in my life, especially my work. The new stuff is good. It's stuff people haven't heard. Some have been wondering if Joe Rogan will leave Spotify at the end of the year. The head of Spotify spoke with CBS and said, what I can say is the contract, I believe, has some more time to go beyond that, meaning the end of the year. Will they renew Joe? All he said was, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Interesting. Fans of Meghan Markle are upset at Saturday Night Live and specifically Michael Che. During Weekend Update, Michael Che joked that Meghan Markle has been offered $19 an hour to attend the coronation of King Charles. As Che told, the joke behind him was a photoshopped image of Meghan Markle dressed as a maid. One Meghanista wrote, notice how Michael Che is not funny and he's never been, especially tonight with his trashy cheap shot. Meghan joke, not funny. It's unforgivable. It's not even funny, just rude. Well, that person is not going to enjoy Palace Intrigue. That's the podcast I'm the writer on. We talk about the British royal family, and more often than not, we're talking about Harry and Meghan. I don't think you're going to like that one. Keep an eye on this next story. We'll see how it develops. I'm out of my depth here, but let me try and share my best understanding of it. From The Hollywood Reporter, post-production workers at Saturday Night Live are preparing for a strike. Their union fired off a bunch of tweets late last week. In the tweets, they wrote, NBCU has refused fair compensation, refused to commit to maintaining existing health benefits, and refused to show SNL's post crew the respect they deserve. NBCU wants to shut us up, so we will yell louder. Plan to join us on the picket line April 1st. One source says NBC hopes to have this rectified by the end of the month. All right, we'll keep an eye on that and see how it can affect SNL. And we still have, separately from that, the writers' strike coming, perhaps, possibly, this summer. Could be an interesting time for television.
Welcome to How to Tickle Yourself. I'm your host, Duff McDonald.
And I'm your co-host, Matt McButter. We'll be talking to people who specialize in different ways of inhabiting their own consciousness, from artists to yoga teachers to scientists. We've even got a professional magician.
We're going to ask them questions like, what is consciousness? Why does it tickle? And what is magic anyway? Is it just card tricks, or is it the fact that your little speck of consciousness is part of a perfect possibility machine?
Find us wherever you get your podcasts and at storicmedia.com.
Thanks again for supporting the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. Some of the folks who have recently thrown a couple bucks in the pot: Cheryl and Tommy and Aaron, Andrea, Gary, Shannon, Mike. Thank you all. There are different things you can do. What a lot of people are doing lately is becoming a member for $5 a month. Again, just once a month, I'll get a coffee from you. Thank you so much, everybody. Oh, and it's Wednesday. You don't have to just buy me a coffee. You can buy me a beer, because on Wednesday evenings, at least until volleyball starts back up, you will find me at the brewery playing trivia with the Trivia Guys, officially known as Best Men Trivia, but I always refer to them as Trivia Guys. I'm worried for the Trivia Guys because the Bob's Burgers hoax people got to the Trivia Guys. One of the questions last week, which they shared on their social media, was about Bob's Burgers. Again, clearly as artwork, clearly people have drawn what Bob's Burgers would look like for actually on TV. The trivia question was, what is the family name of the Bob's Burgers people? The questions the Trivia Guys should have asked would have been twofold. One, has anyone in this room ever seen Bob's Burgers? We would have all written down no and gotten the point. And then maybe as a bonus question, they could have asked, has anyone in this room ever met anyone who's seen Bob's Burgers? Again, the answer clearly no. Another way you can support the show, and I'm seeing a lot of it lately, is signing up to become a premium subscriber on Apple Podcasts. I would shout you out, but Apple Podcasts doesn't tell me who you are. I just see that some money hit the account. Again, thank you. So what do you get for that? If you open up the Apple Podcast app, they'll put it under your nose, and then for $5 a month, you can get the episodes ad-free and a little bit early. By a little bit early, I mean like late afternoon, the day before. So this episode you're hearing right now on Wednesday was probably available sometime on Tuesday, plus or minus my schedule. The latest it usually goes up is 4 o'clock. Sometimes you have it as soon as the sun rises. And if you just want to test drive that, you can do the first month free. See if you like it. It's not worth your $5. I'm not offended at all. Just trying to make a couple coins here. The rest of today's podcast is all about Ted Lasso. I won't do plot spoilers, but there will be what I call vibe spoilers. So the series is kind of about this, but I won't tell you specific plot points, but I may mention themes. Nothing else in the rest of the podcast is about anything other than Ted Lasso. So if you don't want to be spoiled at all, why don't you check out now, and I'll give you a beat here to click off. Are you gone? Well, you can't answer if you're gone because A, that's not how podcasts work, and B, if you're gone, you're not hearing me ask you if you're gone. From Deadline, Jason Sudeikis says, this is the end of the story that we wanted to tell. Timeout. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion here. Is this the final season or not? The vibe seems to be that we might get Ted Lasso-less for a season 4, if you know what I mean. Seems like Sudeikis is done and everyone else, including the viewers, is like, keep going. But Jason seems kind of checked out, and that'll be one of the themes here in the second half. Jason said, this is the end of the story that we wanted to tell, that we were hoping to tell, that we'd love to tell. The fact that folks will want more and are curious beyond more than what they don't even know yet, meaning season 3, it's flattering. Maybe by May 31st, once all 12 episodes of the season have been released, they're like, man, you know what? We get it. We're fine. We don't need any more. We get it. But until that time comes, I'll appreciate the curiosity behind what we've come up with so far. I'll jump in there. Unless this series like loses its mind and like Roy Kent is killed in a horrible accident in the series finale, I want more of the show, don't you? Yes. All right, Jason Sudeikis, could there be a Ted Lasso spinoff based on one of the other stars of the show? For example, Roy Kent? Jason said, yeah, I think we've set the table up for all sorts of folks to get to watch the further telling of these stories. Again, I can't help but take the question as flattery for what of all of us that were working on the shows tried to do. It's really kind of folks to even consider it because you never know what's going to happen when you make things. The fact that people want more, even if it's a different avenue, is lovely. Daniel Feinberg writes for The Hollywood Reporter. He is my favorite TV critic. He has seen the first 4 episodes. Spoilers. Based on the first 4 episodes sent to critics, Ted Lasso absolutely feels like a show that's treating this run as an end, if not the end. It's backward-looking more than forward-looking, and the shape of an overall series narrative is becoming increasingly clear. At the same time, the show continues what could either complimentarily be called its expansion or critically deemed its bloat. These 4 episodes are all between 44 and 50 minutes. Without adapting their tone or rhythms from back when the show was 30 minutes long, the result is unwieldy, like a solid 8-episode season squished together with little regard for flow or repetition. Odd dragging moments aside, though, I have so much affection for so many of these characters, too many if we're being honest, that the comfort from their return is tremendous and the enjoyment frequent. All right, where are we when we start the season? Spoilers. We pick up the start of the new season As pundits are picking Richmond to finish last and thus face relegation, this upsets Rebecca. Mostly because West Ham, now owned by her ex-husband, is expected to finish in the top 5. What'll happen? There's some new players, etc., etc. Daniel Feinberg writes, lots of other stuff is happening. Too much stuff. Roy and Keely's relationship remains strained, but at least her new PR shingle is up and running. We get to check in on Jamie. Sam owns a restaurant for some reason. Feinberg says, it's not that Ted Lasso spread itself too thin. Exactly the opposite. It's spread too thick. Apple TV should have 3 or 4 interconnected spin-offs at this point. Series creator Bill Lawrence spoke to Forbes. He credits MASH as his introduction to this type of show. It's one of his all-time favorites, along with The Wonder Years, Cheers, and Veep. Bill Lawrence said, each had giant emotional undercurrents. I love mixing comedy with stories that have emotional depth and heart. With Scrubs, at the time, everybody wanted shows where the doctors were very serious. We thought they could still be funny. One of the best coping mechanisms is laughing at tough situations. One thing I've learned is if you chase what you think is popular, it feels inauthentic. With Ted Lasso, we started with something hopeful and optimistic because we needed that, and we're lucky the show worked. And you want a contrarian point of view? Let's go to the Sydney Morning Herald, your home for comedy news. Luke Ryan writes, don't begrudge the world nice things. But Ted Lasso is to comedy what being slapped in the face with a wet newspaper is to boxing. Yet the show gripped people. Everyone I knew was recommending it to me, as if all my friends and family had been inducted into a blood cult whose sole purpose was to spread the word of Ted, that say, it's just so nice. I mean, not like haha funny, but nice. I'm going to jump in again. People were doing that with Yellowstone. I just blew off Yellowstone for like 5-6 years, and then I started watching Yellowstone. I don't shut up about Yellowstone now. Are you watching Yellowstone? Watch Yellowstone. Luke Ryan continues, nice it might be, but the only thing about Ted Lasso that could be described as comedy is the premise itself. He then describes the premise. You know the premise. This is a great pitch and worked really well during the 30-second ads in which the character Ted Lasso was born. Then Ted starts speaking and you realize that you, the viewer, are trapped in a self-help seminar being run by a guy who sleeps in his car. Non-threatening, Ted Lasso certainly is. I've felt more violated during a routine hug with my mother, watching punchlines being served up as though they were a scoop of vanilla soft serve. Unless things get too frivolous, the show's always ready to neutralize the mood with a classic OG Lassoism such as, if you care about someone and you got a little love in your heart, there ain't nothing you can't get through together. A line of such limitless vacuity, it feels like it's breaking physics. Getting the vibe here that Luke Ryan likes Ted Lasso the way I enjoy Adam Sandler's comedy. The truly infuriating thing about Ted Lasso's much applauded attempts to make a point is that we find ourselves in a golden age of meaningful comedy. Shows like Reservation Dogs, Fleabag, This Way Up, I May Destroy You, Barry, Atlanta, We Are Lady Parts, and Bad Sisters all offer emotionally nuanced, finely balanced portrayals of flawed characters grappling with some of our era's most profound issues. Fair enough. I like Ted Lasso. I'm going to watch. Although, the problem is, my wife also likes Ted Lasso, and the odds of us being free at the same time, it's going to be weeks before we find half an hour to watch this thing. And tonight, I'm at trivia with the trivia guys. So I'm not even going to watch Ted Lasso or Mandalorian. Maybe Thursday night. Thursday night's like power night for me. I watch Star Trek, Mandalorian. I guess I got to add Ted Lasso to that mix if she's around. That's your comedy news for today. Am I still on jury duty? Who knows? Did I record this early? Apparently. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow. All right, here's the pitch. 5 stories. They're all good news. It's called 5 Good News Stories. No negative news, just good news. Nice, easy way to start your day. Hopefully a smile. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac, host of 5 Good News Stories. You get the premise? There's 5 stories, and they're all good news. It's the number 5 Good News Stories. 5 Good News Stories. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.